Okay, it's snowing. No, it's not snowing. Wow, look at that thing. That's all these cotton blossom trees. I don't know what they're called. Phew. All right, but it's about, I don't know, 75 or so. It's a very nice day. Finally got some sunshine. It's been raining for a while. I just wanted to kind of introduce myself. I am definitely an introvert. Glad I can edit this. Okay, so YouTube is great for introverts. I mean, I think there's a lot of people with a lot of good ideas, and you know, you're not going to see them, you're not going to hear them, you know, if not for YouTube. And if you're thinking about starting a channel, I would say just go for it. As you can see, my videos so far are not all that professional. They will be getting better, and I'm sure the sound is probably not all that good right now anyway, but you know, I'll be working on that too. Okay, the hard thing is the human brain is just plagued by biases. Everybody's got them. We're all biased about all sorts of things. The main thing that we really can't escape is self-serving bias, and that is where we all feel, you know, if something is going our way, something, you know, is good in our lives, you know, that's because, you know, we are somehow exceptional. You know, we did something, we caused that good thing to happen in our lives. And, you know, and if something bad happens in our lives, well, you know, that's just because of circumstance. You know, I didn't do well on the test. Well, that's because, you know, I didn't study as well, as hard as I could. I stayed up too late. Blah blah blah. You know, these are, you know, it has no reflection on, you know, my intelligence. It just means that, you know, this particular time I didn't do well. Whereas if I did well on a test, well, yeah, no, that's just because I'm smart. You know, that's just an intrinsic quality of me. Okay, so, you know, that's our self-serving bias, and we pretty much need that. The problem with introverts is we examine things like that. We look at our self-serving bias, and, you know, we say, oh, well, you know, is that true? And, you know, obviously we come to the conclusion that, well, okay, maybe that's not really true. And that will tend to lower your self-esteem, your self-confidence, and that's why I think introverts are more known for being less self-confident. That's a big, you know, a big deal, because what do we look for in leaders? You know, not that we even should be looking to leaders, but that's just another one of the things that we do, is we look to leaders, and we look for confidence. And unfortunately, those who display confidence aren't always, you know, the people who put the most thought into things. They're usually just the people who are, you know, most outspoken, and actually tend to be less introverted. The more you're introverted, the more you're unsure. Okay, so we've got people working without much time to question, you know, what's going on. You know, you put in a hard day's work. You come home. You've got kids. You got to deal with your kids. You know, you've got to unwind, because you're spending, you know, 8 or 9 hours someplace that you don't want to be, doing something that you don't want to do, just so you can have enough money to feed yourself and your family and have shelter. And this is the system that we think is normal. If nothing else, I want people who look at this channel to question what we take for granted as normal. It's my assertion that we're not civilized yet. We think that we're living in civilization. We point to the Dark Ages and other things like that and say, hey, those were barbarians. Good thing we live in civilized society now. I'm not so sure. Are we really that civilized? You kind of have to wonder. You got some people who have, they think nothing of going out and spending $13,000 on an umbrella stand. Whereas, when at the same time, you've got people who are starving in the world. And the society that we're in absolutely encourages that. And I'm guilty of it too. Everybody's guilty of it. I mean, I've got this fairly nice motorhome, and I'm spending a lot of money to fix it up. I could use that money to feed starving people. It's really damning when you think about it. I mean, what we spend our money on, and what we think is important. My goal is to get this thing. I mean, it's totally. I agree. I mean, I admit it's totally hypocritical and maybe even contemptible to think that this is what this is my plan, is to get my situation how I like it, get it comfortable, and then worry about, everybody else. I don't know what to say. It's the plan I've put forward. Luckily, I think that, this is the lifestyle that I am interested in isn't going to take as much resources as normally, the lifestyle I had before this. You're encouraged to think, hey, the guy next door has this, and I only have this. I have to go out and get that. Oh, he's got an iPhone 6. I still have an iPhone 5 or iPhone 4 or whatever. It's just our consumerist culture, and I'm sure I don't have to lecture people about that. You understand. Okay, so why is this important now? There's a law that says that kind of governs how technology increases. It increases exponentially. Since I've been alive, I'm in my 40s. Technology has come a long way. There's no way you could envision having the level of comfort living in a van and the level of connectivity living in the van, back then, as there is today. I mean, I think nothing of taking a phone call in the van, whereas, you try to picture that, back in 1975 or whatever. I mean, you're thinking about a van with, a big, long telephone line going along the street or something. I mean, there would be no way of taking a telephone call. Not to mention, nobody's even thought about what the internet was back then. So, I mean, technology is accelerating exponentially. Technology over these last 100,000 years has been so low that the exponential increase of it hasn't really meant that much. But now that we've got some meat under us, that is going to make a huge difference. The technology is advancing so quickly that we're able to do things that you got to shake your head at and think that if this power is put into the hands of just a few people and we haven't become civilized yet, I mean truly civilized, where and my definition of that is where you truly think of somebody else as being you. I mean, anybody else, you think of them as being you. We're going to have the power to, and I'm sure, some governments already do have the power to, create, for instance, like a gene-specific virus, that can wipe out all people with, a specific gene in them, or something like that. Something that or will sterilize people of, certain races, or, people who have a gene for, certain things. And this isn't really paranoia talking. I mean, this is just, what's going to be possible. I mean, cameras are so small. I mean, you could have, and I think they already do have, cameras like the size of, little flies that can just be anywhere. And this is just what we have now. I mean, imagine another 10, 20 years. What are we going to have then? And what worries me is that there's such a concentration of wealth that the people who have all the wealth, I mean, if they've got all this economic power, and then you combine that with technology, that's bad news, especially since most of these people with this power don't have the empathy that you and I have. One of the addictions that people can get is the addiction to power. And if you suffer from this, there's no, it's like a positive feedback. There's no intervention. Your friends don't come up and say, hey Jerry, we noticed that you've been excelling at work and doing really well, and you're very successful, and you're making a lot more money and taking up a lot more resources than you need. We think that you may be addicted to power, and we're here to help you. Relax. Don't work so hard. You don't see that, okay? People who are successful are celebrated, and it's encouraged that they gain more power. And our society is set up like that, obviously, because the people who have a lot of power also are able to influence opinions, and that's the opinion they want people to have, and that's the opinion that we have, all through the media again. Okay, so you've got these psychopaths who don't really care about whether somebody's starving. They care about their bottom line. And I hope that in the future, our kids, grandkids will say, will look back at this time and say, You know, what was wrong with you? what, how could you live like that? How could you go out and buy a new car or a new whatever when there's somebody, you know, right down the street, you know, who's struggling to feed their kids? You know, why did you all buy into that system? Didn't anybody say this is ridiculous, this is immoral? I think that if you can simplify your life so that you don't have all of the needs that others might have, that you can get by with less, and you're happy with less, you know, then you can free up some resources, and most especially time, and you know, use that time and those resources to, as another guy says, reduce world suck. I like that expression. And all right, so that's another thing I want to get to. World suck. You know, what is world suck? I had to laugh first time I heard that expression. World suck to me, I guess I've never read a definition of it, so I'm going to define it here. Is basically the feeling that there's something wrong in the world. It's not, you know, here we are, intelligent, bipedal creatures with opposable thumbs, and, you know, with the capacity for empathy and altruism and all sorts of things. Yet we have created a society, or most of us haven't created, most of us have been born into a society and haven't bothered to change the society, or haven't yet changed the society, wherein, you know, we've got a few people with just huge fortunes. I mean, if we could line up, you know, figuratively or whatever, line up people along this field here, right along this line, and give them some, you know, a token, you know, a small token for, you know, a certain amount of wealth, and just put them along the line randomly, and, you know, we would see most people with just, you know, a tiny little thing of wealth. But every once in a while, you get enough people on this big field, okay? If you get enough people along here, you're going to see somebody with just this huge, gigantic pile. I mean, just enormous, overflowing into other people's space. Just a giant mass of resources that they couldn't possibly ever use. The thing is, you don't see it. I mean, sure, you see, you know, lifestyles of the rich and famous, you see people with the mansions or whatever, but you don't see like a clear representation of that, because, you know, the way we've got, you know, debt working in the society, you don't know who's really, you know, somebody might be living in, you know, this nice huge house, but they, you know, it might be in debt to their eyeballs, whereas somebody else, you know, driving a regular car, and, you know, they're just a billionaire. But I mean, if you could see it, I mean, if we, you know, put people along this field, let's say this whole field, and we got, like, say 100,000 people. That's a pretty good sample at random. and we just put them along this field, and we said, you know, and we gave them a little chip like this that represents maybe $1,000. All right, and you got everybody with, you know, one chip or less, mostly. Some people with maybe 10 chips, 100 chips. And then you're going to see one or two people with just a huge, gigantic mound. Everybody on this field would be just like staring at this guy, thinking, what the hell? How, wow. And let's say that this group of people then became a tribe, you know, like in the really, really olden days. How would a tribe react to that? How would people react to that? You know, everybody's got this one little thing, and then this guy's sitting on this gigantic horde. You know, without a police force, right? There's no police. There's just the people. I think our sense of fairness would bring that into question and say, hey, okay. Now let's say this guy's worked hard. Is it possible for him to have worked that much harder than everybody else? You got all these other people, you know, who, you know, say you got a fry cook, you know, you're going to tell me he hasn't been working hard? You got, you know, a policeman, a fireman. You tell me that these people aren't working hard? They're not sitting on a huge mound like this. Okay? So, yeah, I think that the society that we've got set up here, where wealth really is hidden, you know, you can't tell who really has it. I mean, it's not really in your face. And you know that if you just had those 100,000 people out there, and you had just one or maybe two with that huge mound and no police, that's not how it would stay. People's sense of fairness wouldn't let that happen. There's no way that anybody has worked that much harder than anybody else. And you know, that's not to say that I condone theft, or that, you know, that I think it's fair that we should, you know, tax these people. I definitely don't think that. I'm just saying that the way that our society is set up right now is not fair. And question, I guess you're gonna put right away is, well, does it have to be fair? Should it be fair? Now, that's one of the things we're going to talk about in the channel. The important point that I want to make is we've got some huge power coming along with this technology, and with the wealth gap that there is, and the evident lack of empathy and ability for us to solve problems without shooting each other, we're going to have to change our method of communication. Even though our human experience subjects us to having certain biases, our human experience also has given us a sense of right and wrong, a sense of empathy, how we should treat each other, things like that we all share, and that most of us share. It's not enough anymore to say, you know, I'm aware, I know what's going on, and I need to get the word out. But we need to actually step it up a bit. What we don't do as humans is think about the future a lot. You know, we can make comparisons to the past, and we can plan for the future. But when we plan for the future, we plan for a future that we look at as if it's an extension of today. We look to the future as if, well, you know, it's going to be all pretty much the same, except for, you know, this one thing that I want to plan for. So, you know, I want to save up some money to buy an RV. The future is going to be pretty much the same as it is today, except this is how I'm going to save my money to get the RV that I want. Okay, but we don't look at the future as something that is profoundly changing on all different levels. For example, if you think about the future 100 years from now, or even 50 years from now, do you think of the human species in, say, 3 different solar systems on 12 different planets, you know, with, you know, intergalactic spaceships, no, not intergalactic, intersolar system spaceships flying all over the place, you know? No, nobody thinks like that. You don't think of, you know, right now we've got what, 7 billion people? When I was a kid, there were 4 billion. At no time has the population been increasing this fast. So, I mean, do you think about what it's going to be like with 50 billion people? 50 billion people, if we have 7 billion right now. 50 billion. That's like 7 more people for every person that's here. 6 more. That's just huge. Do you think about, you know, a base on the moon, you know, all of these things? I mean, we don't think about the future in that way. Right now, I mean, if the human species survives, I mean, we are of the first, you know, 7 billion or so, you know, to start here on this planet, on Earth. I mean, let's say 1,000 years goes by. What's the human species going to look like then? You know, we're going to have people, you know, on all sorts of planets. You know, be like, yeah, oh, I remember back in the day when, you know, we only had one planet, you know. So we got to start thinking in that term, and the rate at which you know, technology is increasing, we got to think about that. I think sooner than later. You know, are we going to have a McDonald's in space? I mean, are we going to have lawyers? I mean, people think that this society is normal. I tell you, this is not normal, and it should not be normal. It should not. People should look at our society and think how sick, how backward. One quote that I heard that really struck me, I heard a few years ago, from Krishnamurti, I think is his name, says, "It is no measure of health to be well-adjusted to a profoundly sick society." Think about that. I mean, you've got people who are, you know, suffering from depression, but it's not because there's anything wrong with them. It's because there's something wrong with society. And people who look around at society and recognize that there's something wrong with it, they feel alone because everybody else is going along with it, or seems to be. You think, you know, well, this doesn't make sense to me, this doesn't make sense to me, and this really sucks. But you know, nobody else seems to question it. You know, it's not on the news every day that this is wrong. So, you know, like the man said, we sit in front of our televisions while some local newscaster tells us that today there's been 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. Like everything everywhere has gone crazy. And nobody anywhere seems to know what to do about it. We sit alone in our house. As slowly the world gets smaller and we say, please leave us alone in our living rooms. Just let me have my toaster, my TV, and my steel-belted radials, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write your congressman. I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. But one thing I know is that you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being, goddammit. My life has value. I'm not much of an actor. But I did like that one. Yeah, so society isn't the way it's supposed to be. And people who are depressed, you know, there's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with them. They're, you know, you just... you're just having a normal reaction to what this society is. All right, I have babbled on a long time here, and I've, you know, I hope this kind of gives you a sense of what I want to be talking about in the channel. There's a lot to cover, and I don't think that I'll be running out of content anytime soon. So I'm going to go edit this down and see, you know, if I can put this into something that's less than a half hour. It'll kind of give you a feel of what I want to put on this channel. Obviously, it's going to be about, a lot of it, it's going to be about my van life. Some will be, but, you know, real talk. Some will be me playing the Uncle Drew. You know, I'm in my mid-40s, 5'7", but I've got, you know, a little bit of a mean basketball streak going, and I think it's amusing. So I'm gonna see if I can get some of that filmed. All right. Thanks for listening, and I hope some of this has caught your attention, because this is definitely one I wanted to be talking about. You know, I had been working on writing a book, but, you know, I think this is a much better medium, YouTube, than asking somebody to read a book these days. All right, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.